Good luck.
Is there a Kenneth Lasiak here? Okay. All right. I just want to make sure we give you the time. Thanks. Also, if you're here to speak and you didn't fill out a request to speak sheet, you are welcome to do that. We got a couple of minutes before the meeting starts. All right, everybody. It is Tuesday, March 12th, 2024, 6:30 p.m., and you are at a Common Council of the City of Wausau meeting. Welcome, everybody. The first item on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. Next, the clerk will call the roll.
We have 11 voting members present.
All right, thank you. Next up, pre-registered citizens for matters appearing on the agenda and other public comment. We have, I think, two folks. First, we have Jonathan Smith.
Hello, my name is Jonathan Smith. I'm on Prospect Avenue, and I would like to speak and share my speak in favor of approving the budget for the River Edge Trail extension on Thomas Street. Multi-use trails like these are essential for more inclusive and accessible routes for folks of all ages and abilities to get out on especially beautiful days or even winter days and enjoy walking, biking, or rolling for commuting or transportation. I'd personally use this trail for commuting and recreation once it's created, and it will benefit a variety of users all across the city. This proposal has been worked hard by the city to get creative and relevant sources for its funding, and it's almost fully funded, and you have the possibility to fully fund it and get it shovel ready for breaking ground in a couple of months, which would be really great. So I urge you to finish the little bit left and get this project across the finish line. And thank you.
Thank you. Next up, I have Maggie Cronin.
Good evening. I'm Maggie Cronin. I live at 311 Summit Drive in Wausau. I'm with Congressman Tom Tiffany's office, and I also work with Senator Ron Johnson's office with the Joseph Project in Wausau. The Joseph Project is a faith-based program that connects individuals that are generally seeking opportunities for employment with opportunities that already exist with specific employment partners. We had our March 2024 intake class last night, and 16 individuals are interested in the program. We hold the classes next week at the Cross Church with Pastor Yao Yang. With the help of the Marathon County Job Center, we teach the students how to write a resume. We teach teamwork and communication in the work setting. We also talk about goal setting and how it impacts the job performance in the workforce. We also teach them how to formulate a budget. On Thursday of each week, leaders come in and we hold mock interviews that some of you have personally participated in to prepare our students how to interview and tell their story on the challenges that brought them to the Joseph Project, things that they have faced, and how they want to work. Two of the biggest barriers that individuals face that we find through the Joseph Project are transportation and housing. Many of our employer partners are not on the bus route, or if they are, the workday starts before the buses start their day. Through the Joseph Project, we provide transportation for the first 30 days of work, allowing enough time for individuals to make arrangements on their own after that. What's unique about this program, no local, state, or federal funding goes towards the cost of the program other than my time in the evenings. Through generous donations, the program is funded by generous local residents that see the success in the program and want to provide not only transportation, but also meals for the class, clothing for interviews, and steel boots for the first day on the job. I hear a lot about resources and programs offered throughout the community. One piece that is missing in that discussion is employment. The pride of work and being able to provide for yourself is a wonderful thing. The Joseph Project's success in moving people from poverty to prosperity is outstanding. I encourage you to stop by and see what this program is all about and the difference that it's making in your community. Reach out to our office if you have any questions.
Thank you. All right, that's all I have for pre-registered citizens. Next up is consent, but I do want to let you know that we are pulling file number 240310, file number 240312, and file number 240108. Yes. But other than those items, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. I have a motion by Alder Herbst and a second by Alder Larson. Is there any discussion? All right, I don't see any.
You may begin voting. Motion passes 11-0.
All right, thank you. File number 240310. This is a resolution from the Economic Development Committee it's an authorization of a request for bids for the purchase and installation of modular manufactured single-family homes on city-owned lots. I have a motion by Alder Watson and a second by Alder Henke. Is there any discussion? Alder Gisselman.
Yes, thank you very much. I would like to.
I might need you to turn your microphone on.
Thank you. Thank you. I would like to amend the resolution, the fourth whereas, looking at the fourth whereas, the last sentence, I would like to move the striking of the last sentence, which reads, development on lots not immediately ready for development will be pursued with program income resulting from sale of homes will be utilized for later housing infill. I think the city can do a little bit better job than waiting for these houses to be to be sold, and then for the profits, I think that there should be other monies available in the city, perhaps with regard to the development of the other lots as they become available. So I move the striking of that sentence from that fourth whereas.
All right, so we have a motion to amend. Caitlin might have
Can you press
an
your amend
activity
button?
for you to do.
I'm sorry.
Can you press your amend button, please? Thank
Okay.
you.
All right, so we have a
Thank you
motion to
for help
amend.
from my
Before-
neighbors.
Before I call on the folks that are ready to speak, is there a second to this amendment? I have a second by Alder Denny. Okay. I'm going to let, what's this sentence? Got it? Okay. All right, so right now we're talking about the amendment. I had Alder Rasmussen, would you like to speak on this amendment?
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess I question a little bit the necessity of the amendment. We just talked about this in the Economic Development Committee last week, and this consideration of the site at Bridge Street and Jefferson, that's 100% about the spend-down deadlines that come attached to ARPA funding. And we were told in the Economic Development Committee that we had the option to include the East Thomas Street sites, but I think we were clear with the motion that passed in economic development that of the available sites that could accommodate affordable housing with ARPA dollars, that the sites that are ready to move first should move first, just so that the spend down happens on time, recognizing that we can capture other federal programming funds for future sites, and that we can also capture the sale funds from the first sites to then move forward. There's concern that some of the Thomas Street sites are waiting on a DNR grant. They're also waiting on environmental testing and maybe even remediation. So if that process takes as long as it has on other sites, there's no guarantee it will, but if it does, if we only would consider those sites, we would not be able to spend down ARPA in time to utilize the funds during the window we have. So community development has brought us these extra sites, 2 on Jefferson, 1 on Bridge, so that as soon as one of those sites is ready to go, that it can go. And then when those affordable housing opportunities are realized, not only are people that need help now getting help sooner, but then we're also able to capture those funds and do more with those same type of funds to keep all these projects moving, including Thomas Street, which we wanted to prioritize from day one. So I think that leaving that statement in there, I mean, either way, the action that took place in ED basically says what this said. Any site that's available to go should go, and sites that are not immediately ready to go will capture future program income, and we will let those take flight as they're able to. But holding up other sites that are basically shovel-ready at the expense of ones that are delayed, we could lose our window to fund those projects entirely. Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Gisselman.
Oh, I'm not arguing with that statement, but I think that there are other, I think the key word that was also used was federal funding, and I'm curious as to what that would be. Also, I think that there was some in the TIF funding. I believe there was some funding that was designated for affordable housing, and I think that the city should pursue those, and I think that we should not let the Thomas Street development wait for the selling of these homes. I think we should pursue other avenues for affordable housing in this city. And and with that, if I can come back at a later time, I'll.
Sure.
But
Yeah, I do want to recognize we have Director Brodick here, she may have a response to some of the conversation we've had. We do have some folks in queue, but I'd be willing to let you kind of respond to what you've already heard.
Thank you. Yes. basically, as Alder Rasmussen summarized it, is exactly where we're at. We are waiting on a WAM grant application from the DNR to be able to move forward with Thomas Street. When that application is determined, that will allow us, if we get the award, to do testing on those sites to make sure, to see what contamination, if any, exists. From that point, then we have, if there is contamination, then there is another grant application that will allow us to do cleanup on that site, but that we don't know the timeline, we don't know the determination of any potential contaminants. So there is still, whether we use ARPA funds or not on that site, there is still just a waiting, like an uncontrollable waiting process. We don't have control to move that forward. I was just talking to Representative Pat Snyder, who has called in to the DNR for us. We've had good conversations with the DNR in the last, especially Friday night and Monday. I talked with the person who reviews our WAM grant applications, and things are moving forward. We just, there's certain mechanisms that we just can't move faster right now. The other federal funding that could be available, or the TIF funding, as Alder Gisselman suggested, is we did note, I believe it was $500,000 in the affordable housing extension that we would want to use for Thomas Street infill housing. Again, we can't use that until we have the determination on the grant, plus the testing done, plus clean site. So we're still at it, whatever funds we want to utilize, we are still in a holding pattern that is outside any real control that we have right now. So I hope that clarifies a little bit of what we're talking about.
Thank you. Alder Killian.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I think I can maybe clarify some of the confusion that may have arisen from what we just heard of Alder Gisselman's amendment, and kind of inject some facts or relevance into the discussion in a way that can demonstrate that the funding elements that Alder Rasmussen had brought up and the WAM application that Ms. Brodick had come up aren't at all relevant to Alder Gisselman's amendment. I think they might have been confused with the sentence that precedes the statement that Alder Gisselman was asking to strike. The sentence before it was, bids will be issued simultaneously and development will begin on lots that are most immediately ready for development. So, I mean, unless I'm kind of misreading the errors and confusion that we just witnessed about the statement that Alder Gisselman actually is amending, that would not at all hinder sites that are shovel-ready, such as the Jefferson Street sites that were mentioned in the resolution at earlier meetings, from taking place. There'd be no holdup. I think what it does, and I'm glad Alder Gisselman brought this up. Had he not, I would have wanted to massage this as well. So the real problem, and I'd say it's a problem because it's just not prudent or rational, is in that statement where it says development on lots not immediately ready for redevelopment will be pursued with program income resulting from sale of homes that will be utilized for later housing infill. That makes sense as one element of the funding consideration set, but when I read this, it does not appear wise or logical to pigeonhole ourselves into one very specific funding source that requires a sequence of events, unless there's some dramatic new information. It's nothing that I would ever see the private sector or the government do, because it is relying on a specific sequence of events that either may take a long time to happen or theoretically may not happen at all. I mean, we'd be looking at, might as well put, we'll fund it when the Detroit Lions win the Super Bowl. I mean, it's that unknown, and I think it could be that long of a process. So to make the chance of all of these developments more successful and to have successful funding, I would have perhaps recommended we just open up the set of considerations for funding, like resulting from sale of homes or other future relevant funding sources. But I think to make it a real nothing burger or non-issue, why don't we, as Alder Gisselman suggested, just remove the sentence about funding, and what that will do is it'll still allow shovel-ready sites to be developed as they become available, but it won't irrationally paint us into a corner for some exotic funding source. So yes, I'll certainly be supporting this, and again, unless there's some dramatic new information, it changes nothing other than increasing the probability of success on all of these projects by keeping our funding sources open. And yes, that does include the TIF funding for affordable housing. As the city finance director knows, I had asked that there be an inventory of projects in that resolution so that nothing slipped by or we didn't get kind of stuck with a city hall special or parlor trick. That was in the resolution, so yes, I would support this. It does not change the time frame of anything. It only increases our probability of success. Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Larson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. May I address Liz Brodek?
Yeah.
I'd like to talk to her about her response. That Ms. Brodek, you know, you came to our neighborhood, and you came to our neighborhood meeting, and we put together a quiz and stuff, and all these affordable homes on Thomas Street. Well, now it seems though Thomas Street is getting pushed on the back burner because the ground is not ready. Well, what was it, 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago? You know, you wanted to put blinker condos on there, and then after that, there was $250,000 homes you wanted to put there. My question is if you know that you wanted to develop this land all along, why hasn't this been taking place all this time? Why hasn't the DNR? Why haven't this land been remediated? Why hasn't it been cleaned up so that now, when we have the perfect opportunity, our Thomas Street residents are being told again, no, you have to wait? I guess I just don't get it. I think the city's dropping the ball here again on the Thomas Street residents. Thank you.
So if I may respond to that, the proposals that you referenced were before my time. So I don't know anything really about those other than that they were made and that the Thomas Street residents really weren't happy with what was being proposed. And so when I came on, I don't think that there wasn't anything proposed on Thomas Street at that point. What we did, and I think this is it's maybe a lengthy history lesson, but I think it's a good one to kind of go back and look at the ARPA infill application as it existed. So when we first applied for these funds, the only lot that we are talking about developing right now is that was included in the original application was 1019 Bridge Street. The other infill lots were bought up by surrounding neighbors, other private developers, and other things happened with them. At the request of the Economic Development Committee, we had talked about Thomas Street for quite a while, and including that in the infill application. And because of the broad way that the infill application was written, we were able to just put Thomas Street, all those remnant lots, in that application and say, this is the thing that we do want to prioritize. We took direction from the policy body of the Economic Development Committee and saying we wanted to prioritize these lots. When we wanted to do that, I started putting together that WHAM application. It's not, those are 13 parcels, and we have to track down the acquisition information on all of those parcels. We have to verify that certain things were done on them in terms of testing or not done. I employed Jean Frankel as mayor's assistant to help with that because it's a lot of paperwork to compile for that application. So we got that submitted on July 24th of 2023. We had held our first visual preference survey input sessions in March and April. So we knew that was an ongoing process. We knew back in March and April that we wanted to apply for this application or for this WHAM grant, and we put it together as quickly as we could. We were expecting a faster turnaround on the grant decision, and it just hasn't happened. So, which is, they're taking everything as it comes, and it's a complicated application. So we've had to amend the application a couple times, bring in new information, just to kind of fill out what any questions that the DNR had, which we've been assured several times has not held up the application review process because it is being taken as it comes. So I think, we are moving. Since July, we've been moving as fast as we can. I had two things that I was asked of for the application. One, I was requested on December 6th, which was a Wednesday. I turned it around the next Tuesday, December 12th. The other one was another box that needed to be checked, and I needed signatures on both of those forms, and that was requested on 2/14, and I got it back on 2/16. So it's been it hasn't been an undue delay on these applications or on this WHAM grant. We're simply at a longer time frame than expected. And I do think that it was, kind of going back to the original point of the housing and the condos that were proposed on there, we didn't have any testing requirements at that point. No one had directed, to my knowledge, no one had directed our department, again, because I wasn't here, to do any testing. Those were going to be slab on grade. I think the way that we're doing things right now and being very cautious and concerned about the land that we want to develop on and put people on and have them live on is a good way of doing things. I think that the grant is the right thing to do. The timeline is simply really out of our control right now.
Thank you. Alder Killian.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And, there have been concerns about, seeking public input and then potentially facing unnecessary challenges. And it's not the DNR application, that is of central concern right now. And Ms. Brodick is correct in terms of many of these problems and dropping the ball on testing that should have happened many years ago. That was before her time. So I guess we could look up who messed that one up, but it was not Ms. Brodick, some element of the city. And the citizens had been asking for testing for years, just like Riverside Park. They were told no problem by the city's great analysis, and we know how that ended up. So I think it is positive we're doing the testing, and just to be clear, especially with the concerns Alder Larson articulated, it seems like he too in the neighboring district wants no more inappropriate or unnecessary delays. So Alder Gisselman's amendment will make sure that no unnecessary delay occurs if there is relevant funding source in the future. So if the city is saying we're not trying to impose some unnecessary delay, it would open up relevant funding sources just like it does with any other development project. Otherwise, it presents the optics that this neighborhood and these residents are being screwed. So I would support Alder Gisselman's amendment and urge my colleagues to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Rasmussen.
Thank you. I think it bears repeating that the Economic Development Committee and the council at the time, when we first considered infill or affordable housing along Thomas Street where the remnant parcels remained, we were directed by prior staff folks not to allow basements based on potential soil concerns, not to allow basements in those homes when they were built. But there was not there was no guidance given to us that we should go out and pursue robust testing. The idea to test and, perhaps remediate before anything gets built came much later after the Blanker project and the single-family homes were rejected. And that came from advocacy from both Alder Killian and the neighborhood. And it's a good thing. I think if you want someone to live in an area, you should know what's in there before, if you just cap it and you put a house on it, well, maybe it's okay, maybe it's not, we don't know. And so upon that advocacy, we all agreed that we thought it was a better idea to test and clean stuff up if it needed cleaned up and build it properly. But that then also does slow down progress. So I think that the right decision has been made to apply for the grant and test it. I guess I don't see the true impact of the amendment, because I think in the spirit of community development and the management of the federal funds that they always have managed from a variety of different fund mechanisms, they're used to recapturing income from the sale or the rental of whatever they have in terms of assets and then reinvesting it into the community. So when they give a grant for, anything from housing assistance to when we had the Live It Up grants to when we had, any federal programming funds, they recapture that revenue as those loans get repaid and then they reinvest it and make more loans. I think in the spirit of just recapturing income and using it to do more of the same, I think that's where that language came from. I don't know if that's the case, but I've heard Tammy Strotz mention to us a number of times that they want to capture program income to do more program. And I think that's what they were trying to do here. I don't think taking the language out necessarily hurts anything here, but I just don't see that it, hamstrings anybody either. I mean, I was just questioning the necessity of the amendment because I think their goal all the time is to capture program income and do more programming with it, which I think is what they're trying to do here. Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Denny.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, it sounds like we're getting wrapped around the axle on whether we're cleaning or what we're doing here. We're just removing one sentence that doesn't put us into a trap where we have to rely on this revolving credit portion of it. So in all likelihood, these houses are going to sell in rapid succession, so we won't have this problem. But in the unlikelihood that it doesn't, we shouldn't sit on it and lose a season or lose a year waiting for that to happen if we have other opportunities. So, could there be an extended closing time on, say, Jefferson, for example, that puts us into the winter, and now we don't start on Tom Street because we didn't close the sale? So I think it's fairly simple what we're asking for, what Alder Gisselman is asking for, and I don't think it's very unlikely it is even going to be needed. But if it is, it's there, and we're not trapping them. Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Watson.
So maybe a silly question, but the program income resulting from the sale of the homes, if it's not earmarked for utilization on affordable housing info, would it be utilized somewhere else? Or is this just is this a way to guarantee that money gets funneled back into affordable housing?
That's kind of where my head was at with this. When I drafted this, I was thinking, I'm sitting here listening to, and I understand it's not mutually exclusive in my mind that, whatever program income will be used for this development, it's not like that's it that will be used for this development. So it could be be pursued with program income.
Or could be.
I do think it's nice to have for us to be able to go and reference a resolution that says this is how we're going to use this program income. It's been directed in a resolution. But again, it could be a may instead of a will be pursued, because then it opens up to all of the other funding sources that are out there as an inclusive funding source. I understand the statements being made, and I think it's not, it isn't, hugely detrimental to remove that sentence, but I do also think for our staff and the legacy of these projects that it's nice to earmark that program income for these projects.
So is there a way to reword that so that the funds from the sale of that program income is devoted to infill projects, but not contingent upon? If there's a better way to do it versus removing it altogether, then at least we can devote those funds towards furthering these projects. I don't know.
To answer your question, I feel like Director Brodek has mentioned that we could replace ready for development may be pursued with program income instead of will. But I will say we are debating this first amendment, which is to strike it. So it might be cleaner if we vote on that amendment first. If everybody is ready, I don't see any more requests to speak. Okay, so right now we are voting on the amendment, and it is to strike the line, development on lots not immediately ready for development will be pursued with program income resulting from sale of homes will be utilized for later housing infill. That is in the fourth whereas clause. So that's what you're voting on right now.
You may begin voting on the amendment. Motion passes 6-5.
All right, so we now have an amended resolution. Is there any further discussion on this? Alder Gisselman.
Yes, thank you. I just want to mention that I think these are three distinct neighborhoods with unique architecture, and I think I'm just putting in a plug that whatever kinds of infill comes in, that they, whether we talk about Bridge Street, Jefferson Street, Thomas Street, these are all separate neighborhoods. They all have their own unique architecture that clearly identifies those neighborhoods. And I wish that, and I speak to the fact that as these bids come in, these designs come in, that we speak that the designs are certainly incompatible with the neighborhoods that they reflect. I think that we have to really be careful that we infill instead of plopping in some unique structures that don't fit. And I just those words, I'm just cautionary that this infill does take on the look of the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Lukens.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify, I voted against the amendment, and I'm not against necessarily striking that. It was just that I guess I wanted to also respect, if changing it to may, if changing the language to may rather than deleting it entirely would be helpful at all to the department. That was my reason for voting against it. So I just wanted to clarify that I'm not against, to get rid of it completely. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so I don't see anyone else requesting to speak. So right now you are voting on the resolution as amended.
You may begin voting. Motion passes 11-0.
All right, thank you. All right, we are still on those items we pulled from the consent agenda. We are on now file number 240312. This is an ordinance from Plan Commission to rezone 1327, 1331, 1333, 1337, 1341, 1355, 1361, 1363, 1371 South 8th Avenue and 706 Fleet Street from a single-family residential to flat residential and neighborhood mixed use to a planned unit development and approve the general development plan to allow for multifamily development. This passed unanimously at Plan Commission. I have a motion by Alder Watson and a second by Alder Lukens. Alder Larson, you've requested to speak.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was the one that had this removed from the consent agenda because I just wanted to publicly thank Jeff and Mike and Colby for all the work that they've done to this in this project and what they're doing not only to this community and how not only they hope they're doing to this community, but to District 10. And I want to offer my sincere thank you.
Thank you. I don't see anyone else requesting to speak, so I think we're ready to vote on this.
You may begin voting. Motion passes 10-0. Change that.
All right. Next up is the final item we have pulled from consent. It is file number 240108. It's a resolution from Public Health and Safety approving or denying various licenses. I know that we have requested one of the folks that whose license was denied, and he is here if you'd like to take this opportunity to speak. We do have a motion by Alder Rasmussen and a second by Alder Larson. So if you'd like to introduce yourself and let us know. A little bit
Hi, I'm Ken Loshik. I work at Chris Gas Station, and yeah, I know I screwed up 21 years ago, but I've completely switched my life around. I'm doing everything I can to fight to better myself and help better the community, even though I turned around and I did screw up 21 years ago. And I just would like the opportunity to be able to have my liquor license so I can continue to do what I found I love doing, is being a cashier and helping customers and people go on about their day.
Thank you very much. Alder Rasmussen.
Thank you. The Public Health and Safety Committee, with its acceptance or denial criteria for license applicants, actually has a conduit whereby applicants that are recommended for denial can submit to the city evidence of rehab, and then have that evidence reviewed by the police chief to determine if he would still uphold or change his recommendation. I don't believe that those documents were received in public health and safety. In fact, I don't believe that public health and safety heard from you. There's an option for people to address the committee where we can make a decision if there's part of the record that's factually inaccurate, or if there's evidence of rehab that we are to consider. I don't recall that any of that has happened. There is an option for it. So, if you're willing to, if you want to know more about this situation, you could refer this particular license back to public health and safety. The clerk's office could invite the applicant in to testify and bring those documents if a final decision tonight to deny is where we're heading. So, we'll take it back in the committee. That's not a problem, but we have not heard from this gentleman before today in the committee, even though that opportunity does exist.
Okay,
So,
thank you. Alder Henke and maybe Police Chief, I see you kind of looking like you might stand up. I don't know. But Alder Henke first.
Thank you. Yeah, we've had people not understand that we need physical documents to be able to review. And I'd like to give everyone who comes an opportunity to do that, unless the police chief is telling me wrong or differently that he got documents. But I think I'd like to make a motion to pull him and refer him back to public health and safety.
Okay, so do you want to push your amend button? Because I'm going to assume that we are amending the resolution to pull Kenneth's license and refer that one back to committee, and then the rest will go through. So we have an amendment. I have a second by Elder Killian. Police Chief, would you like to share any insights with us?
Sure, thank you. I just wanted, having the opportunity to talk to the whole council about this. It has been my position since becoming chief that I have a list of the violations or statutes or laws that if someone's convicted of, that excludes them or is an automatic disqualifier or denial on my recommendation for denial on my part. However, numerous people have accepted my invite or contacted me or provided evidence of rehabilitation. I consider the amount of time since the offense, and just an example for you. A misdemeanor battery is an exempt offense in which I'm required by the standards to deny. And I don't know what your situation is, sir. Now's probably not the time to cover that. But at the end of the day, 20 years ago, a misdemeanor battery because you got in a fight with someone and you pled guilty, and then what you have accomplished in the last 20 years or 10 years is something I take under consideration, because my preference would be anyone that wants to work in our city be given the opportunity to do that, make a living, support their family. So that is how I've made decisions since becoming chief over the last 6 months. And that's what I plan on continuing to do. So I really appreciate this coming back to the committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so right now we have an amendment that we'd like to vote on and no further request to speak. So the amendment is to pull Kenneth's recommendation here and put it back to committee. So that's what we're voting on right now.
There is, Chad.
Oh,
You're good.
just
Okay.
kidding.
You may begin voting. Motion passes 9-1.
All right, thank you.
All right, one last thing.
Alrighty.
I appreciate you guys' time. So that means that it's going back and I just go forward because I didn't quite fully understand
Yes.
what all that meant. So I'm going to try and get all the documentation
Yes.
with my successful completions of my programs while I
Yes.
was incarcerated and everything, and have it brought.
Yes, get ready with that. You can also, I'm guessing our police chief would step outside quickly with you to kind of briefly tell you what you need to bring with you for that committee, and also when that committee is so that you can show up and make your case.
All right, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. All right, so this body is not quite done yet. You still need to vote on this resolution as amended. Oh, I have Alder Rasmussen. Would you like to speak?
just a comment, that committee is meeting Monday. So
Okay.
if the clerk's office could convene with him, if he can get his stuff in on time.
Yep.
We would be happy to have him Monday so that he could keep this process moving.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, now we are on the resolution as amended.
You may begin voting. Motion passes 10-0.
All right, thank you, everyone. All right, next up, we are We don't have any appointments to talk about today, but we do have file number 240307, a resolution from the Parks and Recreation Committee approving athletic park use agreement. This is for Wausau College Softball LLC. I have a motion by Alder Herbst and a second by Alder Lukens. Is there any discussion or any questions from this body? I don't see any.
You may begin voting. Motion passes 9-1.
Right, thank you. Next up, we have file number 231109C. This is a resolution from the Finance Committee approving and adopting the budget for American Rescue Plan Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Fund funded projects, River Edge Trail Extension, Thomas Street. I have a motion by Alder Lukens and a second by Alder Watson. Is there any discussion? I don't see any.
You may begin voting. Motion passes 9-1.
All right, thank you. We have file number 231109D. This is a resolution approving and adopting a budget modification for American Rescue Plan Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Fund funded projects to supplement existing storm, water, and sewer utility projects. I have a motion by Alder Lukens and a second by Alder Watson. Is there any discussion? I don't see any.
You may begin voting. Motion passes 9-1.
All right, thank you. Next up is file number 231109E. This is a resolution approving and adopting the budget modification for American Rescue Plan Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Fund, ARPA, Catholic Charities Warming Center and Day Center related contract modification. I have a motion by Alder Lukens and a second by Alder, Watson, City Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to point out in the packet, the second amendment that was included in there, my legal assistant pointed out to me that after talking to the finance director, the total amount of ARPA funds were reduced by $232,000, but she forgot to change the amount earlier in the amendment under a whereas clause. So you're authorizing alternate one-time funding also in the amount of $232,000, not $250,000, which was left in the second amendment, which is in your packet.
Okay, thank you. Alder Rasmussen.
Do you need an amendment to incorporate the city attorney's corrections, or?
Is it housekeeping?
I don't think so. We'll just make that change,
Okay.
but we wanted to point it out to you if whether or not you caught it, so you understood it's $232,000 and not $250,000.
Okay, thank you. Is there any discussion on this? I don't see any.
You may begin voting. Motion passes 10-0.
All right, thank you. Next up is file number 231109F. This is another resolution from the Finance Committee approving a 2024 budget modification, City Hall hardware and software door lock systems and related security improvements. It looks like we have a motion by Alder Henke and a second by Alder Lukens. Alder Rasmussen, or Larson, excuse me.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My only question is here, we've already approved twice money for the security in this building for I'm assuming what's slowly being built out in the hallway there. Why has this not been included in what we've previously voted on? Why is this something that's over and above? It seems.
So it's really additions to the project. I think the documentation in the minutes reflects that as we progressed in the project, we needed one more, I guess, button for the automatic doors, but the doors have been failing us. The system that operates the doors have been failing us for some time. We've had doors that wouldn't open with key fobs for months at a time. We have doors that are just opening at random at times when City Hall is closed. We've had times where they're locking when City Hall is open, also during public meetings where people can't get in because the doors are just locking and unlocking like there's a poltergeist in the locking system. So We need to upgrade that system, and this is going to help us do that. So it's
okay, I
needed
underst-
for security, but outside of the project that we had initially planned.
Okay, that's outside of the project
Yes.
that we originally
Yep,
voted on.
yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Alder Rasmussen.
Thank you. We asked that same question in finance too, and it was determined that when this project specs were first written, it was presumed that the doors and the door locks automatically were functioning, but then came to find out that that problem has only gotten worse. So here we are.
Alder Killian.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and just as an extension of Alder Larson's question, so just to clarify, not just for the body, but the public, this is just so the doors can function, essentially, right? It's not,
And it's adding a little bit of extra capacity so that we can put some additional locks in.
but unrelated to the other, like, large, profound changes that were in, okay, yes, thank you.
All right, I don't see anyone else requesting to speak.
You may begin voting. Motion passes 10-0.
All right, thank you. Next up is file number 231109G. This is another resolution from Finance Committee approving the 2024 budget modification for purchase of an icebreaker. I have a motion by Alder Herbst and a second by Alder Rasmussen. Alder Larson.
Oh, thanks again, Madam Chair. When I saw this, I was pretty quite excited about this because I live in a neighborhood where there is no sidewalks, there is no curb and gutter, and many of you know that I've often referred as my district and my neighborhood as a forgotten neighborhood when it comes to snow plowing. And I see that the monies are coming from this, from monies that were not used from street plowing and stuff this year. And I guess I'm just excited to see how this works and how this will actually make our side streets a lot safer so persons like myself can safely walk down my street and walk my dog without having to slip on ice. Thank you.
Yes. All right, I don't see anyone else requesting to speak.
You may begin voting. Motion passes 10-0.
All right, thank you. Next up is a request to suspend the rules, 6B filing and 12A referral of resolutions. This does require a 2/3 vote. I have a motion by Alder Watson and a second by Alder Henke. This is non-debatable.
You may begin voting. Motion passes 10-0.
All righty, we are on to file number 240304. This is a resolution from Finance Committee authorizing the acceptance of Community Enhancement Grant for a therapy dog. I believe this was a unanimous pass at committee as well. So I have a motion by Alder Watson and a second by Alder Herbst. Is there any discussion? And if you didn't get to see Badge earlier, that's too bad. All right, I
You
think.
may begin voting. Motion passes 10-0.
All right, thank you very much. Last item here is public comment and suggestions. If you are here and you didn't get an opportunity to speak, you are welcome to approach the podium and take 3 minutes. Yes, I just need you to give your name and address for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Okay, my name is Albert Meyer, 1226 Stark Street. The original, I believe, city council meeting concerning the approving the athletic park use agreement with the college softball league. There was talk of incorporating artificial turf. Is that the case for the future for this venue for athletic park? Because if it is, why does it have to be artificial turf? And what's the cost?
So we are not technically allowed to answer your questions during public comment, but if you want to stick around, we have people here who can answer your questions.
All right, thank you.
Yep. All right, is there anybody else that would like to speak? All right, otherwise I would entertain a motion to adjourn. I have a motion by Alder Watson and a second by Alder Herbst. All in favor can signify by saying aye.
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 Any
Aye.
opposed? All right, thank you, everyone.